You know it's going to be one of those days when you're looking for your wife's car keys and instead find a small pharmacy's worth of marital aids that definitely weren't meant for you. I'm talking premium blue pills, fancy lubricant, and condoms so expensive they probably came with their own warranty. I'm Danny, 42 years old, and I troubleshoot network security for a living, which means I'm really good at finding things people don't want found. My wife Lisa works in corporate sales, climbing that ladder one client meeting at a time. Or so I thought. Standing there in our kitchen, holding a bottle of something called Smooth Operator Premium and a pack of condoms that cost more than our monthly Netflix subscription, I felt that familiar itch in my brain, the same one I get when I find a security breach in someone's system. "Hey, honey," Lisa called from upstairs, all cheerful and innocent. "Have you seen my purse? I've got that big client dinner tonight." Client dinner. Right. Because nothing says professional meeting like a bottle of little blue pills and enough latex to stock a medical facility. I put everything back exactly as I found it, but not before taking a few photos with my phone. Evidence, you might say. Old habits from my IT security days. Lisa bounced downstairs wearing her best power suit, the one that cost 3 months of my salary and made her look like she could negotiate peace treaties or hostile takeovers. Her hair was perfect, makeup flawless, and she smelled like that expensive perfume she claimed was just for special occasions. "Found them," she announced, snatching the purse from the counter. "Mr. Blackstone is such an important client. This dinner could mean a huge promotion for me." Mr. Blackstone. Preston Blackstone, CEO of some tech startup that had more venture capital than actual products. I'd met him at Lisa's company Christmas party. 6'2", silver hair, the kind of smile that belonged in toothpaste commercials. He'd spent the entire evening talking about his yacht, his cars, and his philosophy of aggressive expansion. "That's great, sweetheart," I said, watching her check her reflection in the hallway mirror. "What time should I expect you home?" "Oh, you know how these corporate dinners go. Could be late, maybe really late. Don't wait up." She kissed my cheek, a quick, distracted peck, and headed for the garage. I watched through the window as her BMW backed out of the driveway, then disappeared around the corner. That's when I got to work. First stop, the internet. Amazing what you can learn about someone when you know where to look. Mr. Preston Blackstone, it turned out, had quite the reputation. 3 marriages, 2 messy divorces, and a pattern of mentoring his female employees. His company's Glassdoor reviews were particularly enlightening. Great benefits, but HR doesn't take harassment complaints seriously, and CEO thinks he's God's gift to women. Second stop, Lisa's laptop. She'd left it charging on the kitchen counter, password protected, but not from someone who understood her patterns. Her birthday, backwards, with our anniversary year. Same password she'd used for everything since college. Her email told quite the story. Months of flirtatious exchanges with Preston. Dinner reservations at expensive restaurants, hotel bookings, and my personal favorite, "Can't wait to see you tonight. I've got a special surprise that'll keep us going all night long." P. The surprise apparently was pharmaceutical. Now, most husbands would probably storm into that restaurant, make a scene, demand explanations. But I've always been more of a chess player than a checkers player. Why have one dramatic confrontation when you could orchestrate a month-long masterpiece of poetic justice? I started with the pills. See, Lisa wasn't the only one who knew about pharmaceuticals. My college roommate Tim worked at a compounding pharmacy, and we'd kept in touch over the years. One quick phone call and a small favor later, I had access to some very interesting substitutes. The blue pills went first. Out came Preston's little helpers. In went the most powerful laxatives money could buy. Same color, nearly identical shape, but with a very different end result. I carefully resealed the bottle, making sure everything looked untouched. Next, the lubricant. This required more creativity. I emptied half the bottle and refilled it with a special mixture. Food-grade hot sauce extract, the kind they use in those challenge restaurants where you have to sign a waiver, mixed with just enough of the original product to maintain consistency. And for the finishing touch, a few drops of that disappearing ink stuff that turns bright red when it gets warm. Finally, the condoms. A sewing needle, carefully applied to create tiny, nearly invisible holes in each wrapper. Not obvious enough to notice in the heat of the moment, but definitely noticeable later. I put everything back in Lisa's purse exactly as I'd found it, then settled in for what I knew would be an entertaining evening. Lisa came home at 2 a.m., makeup smudged, hair disheveled, looking like she'd been through some kind of ordeal. She stumbled into our bedroom, muttering something about food poisoning and never eating sushi again. I pretended to sleep while she showered, a very long shower, I noticed, and crawled into bed beside me. The next morning, she called in sick to work, 3 days later, my phone buzzed with a news alert that made me spit out my morning coffee. Tech CEO hospitalized after incident on private jet. The article was better than I could have hoped for. Preston Blackstone, flying from Seattle to Los Angeles for a critical business meeting, had suffered what the article diplomatically called severe gastrointestinal distress at 35,000 feet. The plane had been forced to make an emergency landing in Sacramento, where Mr. Blackstone was rushed to the hospital, and the aircraft was grounded for extensive cleaning. But the real gold mine was the follow-up story that appeared on social media. Someone on that plane, God bless them, had filmed the whole thing. Not the graphic parts, thankfully, but Preston's stumbling, panicked rush to the bathroom, followed by what sounded like a small explosion, then 20 minutes of the most pitiful groaning I'd ever heard. The video went viral within hours. #executive meltdown was trending on Twitter by lunchtime. Lisa spent the morning glued to her phone, getting increasingly pale as the story developed. When the videos started circulating, she actually gasped out loud. "Poor Preston," she said, trying to sound casual. "He must be so embarrassed." "Who's Preston?" I asked innocently, not looking up from my laptop. "Oh, just someone from work, the CEO of one of our client companies. It's all over the news." Sounds like he had some kind of food poisoning. You mentioned having stomach trouble the other night, too. Maybe you ate at the same place?" Lisa's face went 3 shades paler. "Maybe. Yeah, maybe we did." The beautiful thing about laxatives is their delayed reaction. What Preston had experienced on that plane was probably from pills he'd taken 2 days earlier, expecting a romantic evening. The timing was perfect, right when he needed to be sharp and professional for his most important business meeting of the year. But I wasn't done yet. That afternoon, Lisa announced she needed to visit a client again. Same routine: perfect hair, expensive outfit, mysterious purse contents. This time, I was ready with phase 2. I'd installed a tracking app on her phone weeks ago, part of our family safety plan, I'd told her, in case either of us ever got lost or had an emergency. She'd agreed without thinking about it. The tracker showed her heading to the Grandview Hotel downtown, the same hotel where she'd been meeting Preston for weeks, according to her email history. I gave them an hour to get settled, then made a phone call to the hotel's front desk. "Hi, this is Dr. Phillips from the CDC," I said, using my most official voice. "We've had reports of a possible food poisoning outbreak traced to your restaurant. We need to evacuate rooms 412 through 418 as a precautionary measure while we conduct testing." The beauty of bureaucratic panic is that nobody asks too many questions when you mention the CDC and food poisoning. Within minutes, hotel security was knocking on doors, politely asking guests to temporarily relocate while they investigated a potential health concern. I watched from across the street as Lisa and Preston stumbled out of the hotel 15 minutes later, both looking disheveled and panicked. Preston was walking funny, probably the after effects of my special lubricant recipe, and kept looking around like he expected cameras to appear. They split up in the parking lot, Preston heading to his car while Lisa walked to hers. Even from a distance, I could see her limping slightly. My phone rang 20 minutes later. "Danny?" Lisa's voice was shaky, almost panicked. "I'm having some health issues. I might need to see a doctor." "What kind of health issues?" "It's personal, female stuff. I think I might have an infection or something. Everything's burning and there's some discoloration." I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. The hot sauce extract was clearly doing its job. "That sounds serious," I said with fake concern. "You should definitely see someone. Dr. Peterson's clinic has evening hours if you need to go tonight." "Maybe. I'm going to try to get an appointment tomorrow. And Danny, could you pick up some cooling cream or something from the pharmacy?" "Of course, honey, whatever you need." I hung up and immediately called Tim at the pharmacy. "Remember that favor you owe me?" I said. "I need you to prepare a special prescription cream." The next morning brought another news story that exceeded all my expectations. Disgraced CEO threatens lawsuit over sabotage claims. Apparently, Preston had hired a team of lawyers and was claiming that someone had deliberately contaminated his medication. He was demanding a full investigation and threatening to sue everyone from the pharmaceutical company to the restaurant where he'd eaten dinner to the hotel where he'd had his medical emergency. But here's where Preston made his critical error. He was so focused on his public humiliation that he got sloppy about covering his tracks. The lawsuit papers, which were public record, included detailed timelines of his activities, where he'd been, when he'd taken the medication, who he'd been with. Preston's lawyers had carefully documented every moment of his evening, including his dinner companion and their subsequent hotel visit. He just handed me a complete confession of his affair with my wife. I called my lawyer immediately. James Patterson, no relation to the author, was the kind of attorney who charged by the hour and earned every penny. He'd handled my business contracts for years and had a reputation for being thorough, ruthless, and creative with legal strategy. James, I need to file for divorce, and I want to include a claim for alienation of affection. Alienation of affection? Danny, that's an old-fashioned claim. Most states don't even recognize it anymore. But ours does, right? Yes, but you'd need to prove that someone deliberately interfered with your marriage, caused the breakdown of your relationship, and did so with malicious intent. I smiled, pulling up Preston's lawsuit filing on my computer. What if the other party filed a public legal document that detailed their affair with my wife, including dates, times, and locations? There was a long pause. Send me everything you have. Within hours, James had crafted a masterpiece of legal strategy. We filed divorce papers against Lisa and a separate lawsuit against Preston for alienation of affection, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and interference with marital relations. The beauty of the alienation claim was that it flipped the script entirely. Instead of Preston suing everyone else for sabotage, he was suddenly on the defensive, trying to explain why he'd been having an affair with a married woman. His lawyers had to choose: defend the sabotage claim and admit to the affair, or deny the affair and undermine their own lawsuit. They chose poorly. Preston's lead attorney held a press conference that afternoon, claiming that any alleged relationship with Lisa was purely professional and that the lawsuit timeline was misinterpreted. That's when I released the emails. Not all of them, I'm not completely ruthless, but enough to paint a clear picture. Dinner reservations for 2 at romantic restaurants, hotel bookings under fake names, love letters that would make a romance novelist blush. Can't wait to get you out of that power suit tonight. P. Last night was incredible. My husband will never satisfy me the way you do. L. Book the penthouse suite for Friday. I want to celebrate your promotion properly. P. The media ate it up. Within hours, the story had evolved from CEO claims sabotage to married CEO's affair scandal explodes. Preston's company stock dropped 12% in one day. But the real entertainment came that evening when Lisa finally came home from her doctor's appointment. She looked awful, red-faced, walking carefully, with what appeared to be some kind of rash on her neck and arms. The cooling cream I'd had Tim prepare was clearly working. It provided temporary relief, but ensured the symptoms kept coming back. Danny, she said, sitting down carefully at our kitchen table. We need to talk. About what? About everything. About Preston, about the lawsuit, about... She gestured vaguely at herself. About whatever's happening to me. I sat across from her, maintaining my best innocent expression. I'm listening. Okay, look, I know how this looks, but it's not what you think. What's not what I think? The stuff in my purse, the pills, the other things. It's not for Preston, it's for us. For our marriage. I had to admire her creativity. Even caught red-handed with overwhelming evidence, she was still trying to spin her way out of it. Really? Yes. I bought all that stuff because I wanted to surprise you. To spice things up between us. I was planning a romantic evening, but then Preston got sick and everything fell apart. That's interesting, I said, because I also found a pack of condoms in your purse. Extra large ones. You know I'm more of a medium guy, Lisa. Her face went white. Those were... And the receipt from the hotel, room 412 at the Grandview, booked under Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Was that supposed to be our romantic getaway too? She started crying then, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. I'm so sorry, Danny. It just happened. We were working late and he was charming and you were always so busy with work. How long? What? How long have you been sleeping with him? She couldn't look at me. 6 months, maybe 7. And the pills were his idea? He said he wanted to make sure he could perform. He's older, you know. He was self-conscious. I nodded thoughtfully. So you bought them for him, with our money, from our joint account. Danny, please. And the special lubricant was for him too? Yes, but I was going to use it with you later. I swear I was planning to surprise you. When? When were you planning this surprise? Between your Tuesday and Thursday hotel visits? Or maybe during one of your weekend client calls? Her crying got louder. How did you know about... About your schedule, about the hotel rooms, about the emails where you told him I was boring in bed and couldn't satisfy you. She looked up at me with genuine terror in her eyes. You read my emails? I read everything, Lisa. Your laptop password is still my birthday backwards, same as it's been for 15 years. You had no right. I had no right? You've been cheating on me for months, using our money to pay for hotel rooms where you could mock our marriage, and I had no right to find out. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand, leaving a streak of mascara across her cheek. What are you going to do? I've already done it. I filed for divorce yesterday, and I'm suing Preston for alienation of affection. Her face went even whiter, if that was possible. You can't. That's not fair. What's not fair is you two laughing about my performance while he was taking pills I paid for. Danny, listen. My phone rang. The caller ID showed James Patterson's office number. Excuse me, I said, answering. Hi, James. Danny, you're not going to believe this. Preston's lawyers just called. They want to settle. Already? It's only been one day. Apparently, his board of directors held an emergency meeting this afternoon. The scandal is destroying their company's reputation. They want this to go away as quickly and quietly as possible. What are they offering? $200,000? Plus a signed confession of the affair? Plus a public apology? I looked at Lisa, who was staring at me with growing horror. And if we don't settle? Then it goes to court, where all the evidence becomes public record. The emails, the hotel receipts, the timeline of their relationship. Plus, we subpoena his medical records, his company communications, everything. Give me 24 hours to think about it. I hung up and turned back to Lisa. Preston's company wants to settle the lawsuit. For how much? She whispered. 200,000. She slumped in her chair. He's going to hate me forever. I think he already does. According to the news, his wife filed for divorce this morning. Apparently, she wasn't thrilled about the affair going public. His wife? But he said they were separated. I laughed, and the sound was cold even to me. He lied to you, Lisa, just like you lied to me. What a surprise. What about us? What about our marriage? What marriage? You killed it 6 months ago when you decided Preston's yacht was more interesting than our living room. She started crying again, but this time, there was desperation in it. Please, Danny, I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I'll cut off all contact with Preston. I'll quit my job if I have to. We can go to counseling. It's too late for that. It's not too late. We can work through this. I stood up, looking down at her sitting at our kitchen table, tears streaming down her face, covered in a rash from my special cream, probably still burning from the hot sauce extract. You want to work through this? I asked. Okay, let's work through this. Explain to me how you justify 6 months of lying to my face. I don't know. I was confused, and Preston made me feel special. Explain to me how you justify using our joint savings account to pay for hotel rooms where you could cheat on me. I'll pay it back. Every penny. Explain to me how you justify telling your boyfriend that I was inadequate in bed. She couldn't answer that one. And most importantly, I continued, explain to me how I'm supposed to trust you ever again. You'll just have to give me a chance to earn it back. No, Lisa, I really don't. I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Oh, one more thing. Those condoms you bought for Preston, I poked holes in every single one of them. Her face went white as the implications sank in. What are you saying? I'm saying you might want to take a pregnancy test. 2 weeks later, Lisa was sitting in the same chair at the same kitchen table, but this time she was holding a pregnancy test. It's positive, she said quietly. I nodded, not particularly surprised. Congratulations. Danny, this baby, it could be yours. Could be, I agreed, but probably isn't. We were together. That night 2 months ago, remember? After your company party? I did remember. It was the last time we'd been intimate, and it had been awkward and perfunctory, like checking an item off a to-do list. That was 8 weeks ago, Lisa. If the baby was conceived that night, you'd be showing symptoms by now. Morning sickness, fatigue, all that stuff. I have been tired. You've been tired because you've been burning the candle at both ends, trying to maintain 2 relationships. And you haven't had morning sickness because this pregnancy is much more recent. She stared at the test, tears forming in her eyes. Even if it's not yours, we could raise it together. Lots of couples don't have wives who cheat on them with their business partners and then try to pin the resulting pregnancy on their husbands. I'm not trying to pin anything on anyone. I just think we should consider all possibilities. My phone buzzed with a text message. James Patterson. Settlement approved. Papers signed. Check will be deposited Monday. $200,000, plus Preston's written confession that he'd engaged in an inappropriate relationship with Mrs. Lisa Thompson, causing irreparable harm to her marriage and family. Well, I said, showing Lisa the text. Now we can afford to find out for sure. What do you mean? DNA test. We'll know within a few weeks whose baby you're carrying. Lisa's face crumpled. Danny, please don't make me do that. Can't we just what? Pretend the last 6 months didn't happen? Pretend you didn't cheat on me with your boss? Pretend you didn't use our money to pay for hotel rooms where you could mock our marriage? I never mocked our marriage. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to one of the saved emails. Danny's idea of romance is bringing me coffee in bed and expecting a thank you. Preston knows how to treat a woman like she deserves to be treated. She winced. I was angry when I wrote that. Here's another one. My husband thinks foreplay is asking if I'm ready. You actually care about my pleasure. Stop. Danny's so predictable. Same job, same routine, same everything. Being with you makes me feel alive again. Please stop. I put the phone away. You want to know the funny thing, Lisa? I actually thought about fighting for our marriage. When I first found out, I considered confronting you, demanding we go to counseling, trying to work things out. You should have. We could have. But then I read those emails, and I realized you didn't just cheat on me. You despised me. Every intimate moment we'd shared, every conversation, every quiet evening together, you were comparing it to your time with Preston and finding me lacking. That's not true. It is true, and it's okay. We weren't compatible anymore. Maybe we never were, and it just took Preston to make you realize it. She was crying harder now. So what happens now? Now you have a decision to make. You can keep the baby and raise it as a single mother. Preston's settlement money will help with expenses, and once the divorce is final, you'll get half of our assets. What if I don't want to be a single mother? Then you have other options, but that's your choice to make, not mine. She wiped her eyes with a tissue. And us? Is there any chance? There's no us anymore, Lisa. There hasn't been for months. I just finally caught up to what you already knew. She sat quietly for a long time, processing everything. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I really did love you, at the beginning. I know, I loved you too. When did it stop? I thought about that. For you? Probably around the time you started staying late at work every Tuesday and Thursday. For me, about 5 minutes ago. She looked up at me with something that might have been hope. Only 5 minutes ago? I nodded. I kept hoping you'd surprise me, that you'd confess, apologize, beg for forgiveness, that you'd prove my little revenge scheme was unnecessary because you actually cared about our marriage. I do care. No, you don't. You care about getting caught. You care about losing your comfortable life. You care about being embarrassed in front of your family and friends. But you don't care about our marriage. If you did, you would have ended the affair months ago. She slumped forward, defeated. What kind of person does this make me? Human, I said. A flawed, selfish human who made bad choices and now has to live with the consequences. And what kind of person does your revenge make you? I considered that. Petty, vindictive. Someone who spent weeks plotting elaborate payback instead of just walking away like a mature adult. Do you regret it? The revenge? No. Every time I see Preston's company stock price drop another point, every time someone shows me that airplane video, every time his lawyers call begging us to stop releasing information, no, I don't regret it. Even if it destroyed 3 lives? It destroyed 1 marriage and 2 reputations. Preston's wife is better off without him, just like I'm better off without you. And Preston himself? He'll recover. Rich, powerful men always do. Lisa stood up slowly, still walking carefully from the lingering effects of my special cream formula. Where do I go now? Wherever you want. Your sister's place in Portland. A hotel. Back to Preston. Though I don't think his wife will appreciate that. Preston won't take me back. His lawyers made it clear that any continued contact with me would jeopardize the settlement. Then you'll figure something else out. You're smart, resourceful, and you've got half of our assets coming to you. You'll land on your feet. She walked toward the door, then stopped. Danny, I really am sorry. For all of it. I know. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I thought about that as she stood in our doorway, pregnant with another man's child, about to walk out of my life forever. Maybe, I said finally. In a few years, when this all seems like something that happened to someone else, maybe I'll forgive you. But not now. Not now. She nodded and walked out. I watched through the window as she got in her car and drove away, just like she had months ago when she was heading to her first hotel rendezvous with Preston. But this time, she wasn't coming back. I was sitting in Murphy's bar. Apparently, it's the only place to have a drink in stories like this, when my phone buzzed with a news alert. Blackstone Tech acquired in hostile takeover. The article was brief, but satisfying. Preston's company had been bleeding money ever since the scandal broke. Clients had canceled contracts, investors had pulled funding, and key employees had jumped ship. A larger tech firm had swooped in and bought the whole operation for about 30% of what it had been worth a year ago. Preston himself was listed as no longer with the company and pursuing other opportunities. The bartender, an older guy named Mike, wiped down the bar near where I was sitting. "You're that guy, aren't you?" he said. "The one from the airplane video scandal?" "I'm the husband," I corrected. "Right. Heard your ex-wife had a baby last month. Small towns. Everyone knows everything." "So I heard." "Yours?" "Nope." Mike nodded, understanding the subtext. "DNA test?" "Didn't need one. Kid came out looking exactly like Preston. Same silver hair, same beady little eyes." "And Preston?" "Disappeared somewhere around the time the paternity test confirmed what everyone already knew. Word is he's washing dishes at a restaurant in Key West, living under a fake name." Mike laughed. "Karma's a bitch. Sometimes, but sometimes karma needs a little help." My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Florida. "Hello? Danny? It's Lisa." I almost hung up, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want, Lisa?" "I just wanted to let you know that Preston contacted me yesterday. He wants to be part of the baby's life. That's between you and him. He's broke, Danny, completely broke. His wife took everything in their divorce, his company fired him, and he can't find work anywhere. He's asking me to move to Florida so we can start fresh together." "Romantic. Are you going?" "I don't know. My sister thinks I'm crazy to even consider it, but he says he's changed. That losing everything made him realize what's important." "And what do you think?" There was a long pause. "I think he's the same selfish asshole who convinced me to cheat on my husband. But I'm a single mother working 2 jobs to pay rent on a studio apartment, and he's the father of my baby. Lisa, can I give you some advice?" "Sure." "A man who'll help you cheat on your husband will eventually cheat on you with someone else. Preston didn't pursue you because you were special. He pursued you because you were available and married, which made it exciting. You think he'll cheat on me?" "I think he's already planning to. Why else would he wait until he was broke and desperate to suddenly decide he wants to be a father?" Another long pause. "I really screwed up, didn't I?" "Yeah, you really did. Any chance we could ever—" "No, Lisa. None." "I figured. I just had to ask." "Take care of yourself and the baby." "I will. And Danny, for what it's worth, I hope you find someone who appreciates you." "I already did." I hung up and turned back to my beer. Mike was still wiping down the bar, pretending not to listen. "New girlfriend?" he asked. "Yeah, her name's Jennifer. She's a nurse at the hospital, divorced, no kids. She thinks my revenge story is hilarious." "Does she know about the laxatives?" "That was her idea. Turns out nurses know a lot about pharmaceuticals." Mike laughed. "Sounds like a keeper." "She is. We're taking a cruise next month. To the Caribbean." "Nice. What's the occasion?" I pulled a small velvet box from my jacket pocket and set it on the bar. "I'm going to ask her to marry me." Mike's eyes widened. "You sure you're ready for that? After everything with Lisa?" "Mike, I spent 15 years married to someone who was pretending to love me while secretly planning to leave. Jennifer spent 10 years married to someone who was physically abusive and emotionally manipulative. We both know what bad marriages look like." "And you think this will be different?" I put the ring box back in my pocket and finished my beer. "I think honesty is a pretty good foundation for a relationship. And Jennifer's the most honest person I've ever met. What does she think about what you did to Lisa and Preston?" "She thinks I was creative, thorough, and probably a little too nice about the whole thing." "Too nice?" "Her ex-husband cheated on her with her best friend. When she found out, she just filed for divorce and moved on. She says if she'd had my technical skills and planning ability, she would have destroyed both of them completely." Mike whistled low. "Marry that woman." "That's the plan." I paid my tab and headed for the door. Outside, Jennifer was waiting in her car, smiling at me through the window. She was beautiful in a completely different way than Lisa had been. Natural, unpretentious, with laugh lines around her eyes and graying hair she didn't bother to dye. When I got in the car, she kissed me properly. Not a quick peck on the cheek, but the kind of kiss that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with her in the first place. "How'd it go?" she asked. "Lisa called. Preston wants her to move to Florida. Are you okay with that?" "I'm thrilled. The farther away they are, the better." "And you're sure you're ready for our trip?" I patted the ring box in my pocket. "I've been ready for months." Jennifer smiled and put the car in drive. "Then let's go home and finish packing." As we drove through our small town, I reflected on the past year. A year ago, I'd been married to someone who was lying to me every day, stealing from our joint accounts to fund her affair, and mocking our marriage to her lover. Now I was with someone who brought me coffee in bed every morning, who laughed at my jokes, who thought my technical skills were impressive rather than boring, and who was genuinely excited about building a life together. Some people might say I was rebounding too fast, that I should take more time to process my divorce before jumping into another relationship. But those people had never experienced the difference between being with someone who pretends to love you and being with someone who actually does. Lisa had taught me what I didn't want in a marriage. Jennifer was showing me what I did want. And honestly, I was sleeping better than I had in years. Sometimes revenge is about getting even, sometimes it's about getting justice, and sometimes it's about clearing the deck so you can build something better in the space that's left behind. I got all three.